They felt the castle long before they saw it, felt it as a wave of sleep that pushed them away. If they walked towards it, their heads fogged, their minds frayed, their spirits fell, their thoughts clouded. The moment they turned away, they woke up into the world, felt brighter, saner, wiser. The queen and the dwarfs pushed deeper into the mental fog. Sometimes a dwarf would yawn and stumble. Each time the other dwarfs would take him by the arms and march him forwards, struggling and muttering, until his mind returned. The queen stayed awake, although the forest was filled with people she knew could not be there. They walked beside her on the path. Sometimes they spoke to her. Let us now discuss how diplomacy is affected by matters of natural philosophy, said her father. My sisters ruled the world, said her stepmother, dragging her iron shoes along the forest path. They glowed a dull orange, yet none of the dry leaves burned where the shoes touched them. The mortal folk rose up against us, they cast us down, and so we waited in crevices, in places they do not see us, and now they adore me. Even you, my stepdaughter, even you adore me. You are so beautiful, said her mother, who had died so very long ago, like a crimson rose in the fallen snow. Sometimes wolves ran beside them, pounding dust and leaves up from the forest floor, although the passage of the wolves did not disturb the huge cobwebs that hung like veils across the path. Also, sometimes the wolves would run through the trunks of trees and off into the darkness. The queen liked the wolves, and was sad when one of the dwarfs began shouting, saying that the spiders were bigger than pigs, and the wolves vanished from her head and from the world. It was not so. They were only spiders, of a regular size, used to spinning their webs undisturbed by time and by travellers. The drawbridge across the moat was down, and they crossed it, although everything seemed to be pushing them away. They could not enter the castle, however. Thick thorns filled the gateway, and fresh growth was covered with roses. The queen saw the remains of men in the thorns, skeletons in armor and skeletons unarmored. Some of the skeletons were high on the sides of the castle, and the queen wondered if they had climbed up, seeking an entry, and died there, or if they had died on the ground and been carried upwards as the roses grew. She came to no conclusions. Either way was possible. And then her world was warm and comfortable, and she became certain that closing her eyes for only a handful of moments would not be harmful. Who would mind? "Help me," croaked the queen. The dwarf with the brown beard pulled a thorn from the rose bush nearest to him and jabbed it hard into the queen's thumb and pulled it out again. A drop of deep blood dripped onto the flagstones of the gateway. "Oh," said the queen, and then, "Thank you." They stared at the thick barrier of thorns, the dwarfs and the queen. She reached out and picked a rose from the thorn creeper nearest her and bound it into her hair. "We could tunnel our way in," said the dwarfs. "Go under the moat and into the foundations and up. Only take us a couple of days." The queen pondered. Her thumb hurt, and she was pleased her thumb hurt. She said, "This began here 80 or so years ago. It began slowly. It only spread recently. It is spreading faster and faster. We do not know if the sleepers can ever wake. We do not know anything, save that we may not actually have another 2 days." She eyed the dense tangle of thorns, living and dead, decades of dried dead plants, their thorns as sharp in death as ever they were when alive. She walked along the wall until she reached a skeleton, and she pulled the rotted cloth from its shoulders, and felt it as she did so. It was dry, yes, it would make good kindling. "Who has the tinder box?" she asked. The old thorns burned so hot and so fast. In 15 minutes orange flames snaked upwards. They seemed for a moment to engulf the building, and then they were gone, leaving just blackened stone. The remaining thorns, those strong enough to have withstood the heat, were easily cut through by the queen's sword, and were hauled away and tossed into the moat. The 4 travellers went into the castle.